Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Newcastle 2, Manchester United 0. I've done the United stand stuff, but I've got to do it on here and talk about how good Newcastle were. And I think it's safe to say that Newcastle are back. They're into third place. And the Newcastle that was so good before the World Cup and since the World Cup hasn't been terrible, not been conceding many goals, but maybe not winning as much. They're definitely back now. They were vibrant today. St James's Park was absolutely rocking, and they were the better team from minute 1 to minute 90. And look, what I would like to have seen as a United fan is a United team go there and give them a game, because I still think Newcastle might have got a good result. They were that good. But when you go there with Scott McTominay playing and Wout Weghorst, it's like a couple of blokes with no knobs turning up for an orgy. I mean, it was pointless, absolutely pointless, and Newcastle took advantage of it. I mean, they were brilliant. They were brilliant, Newcastle. I thought, well, David De Gea was Manchester United's man of the match. He made some big saves in the first half and the second half. There were some blocks in there. There was some poor finishing from Newcastle in the first half, and they still, at 0-0 at half-time, I think Eddie Howe would have been fuming with them. Even though they played really well, he would have been saying, we should have the game done. Go and do it again. And they did, and they won the game 2-0 in the second half, and it could have been a lot more. At the end of the day, in total honesty, it could have been a lot more. So Newcastle were brilliant. They got the tempo right. They got the game plan right. And as I say, I think Ten Hag got it wrong. I think when you play Scott McTominay and Wout Weghorst as your number 9 and your number 10, no wonder that his defensive line and the centre-backs of Newcastle were pushing so high, because it's like literally there is nothing going on. We don't need to worry about anything. All right, Rashford's quick, but they're not getting the ball to anyone who's going to get him in anyway. It was the only threat United had was against Dan Burn and Anthony, and that was, I wouldn't say it was a rip-roaring success, but it was the only area of the pitch that Man United might look like they were going to do something. The midfield battle is where many games are won. We knew United didn't have Casemiro, but Newcastle didn't play Joel Linton. They went Willock, Gomes and Longstaff, and it worked, and they dominated. St Maximin looked really dangerous. They didn't have Almer on, but they didn't let that bother them. Newcastle played as a team. They were up for it. I think it's always good if you're at home after an international break, but you can't use that as an excuse. Newcastle were the dominant force, and they deserved to win it. And what that means for the top 4 race, well, look, Newcastle have... I was talking about this on Friday. We were talking about who's going to get top 4. Funnily enough, I did say Man United and Newcastle would get 3rd and 4th. It might not end up being in that order, but you look at the results over the weekend. Liverpool lost to City. I think many people expected that. Newcastle, I thought, would be a draw with Man United, so they've gone and got a couple of extra points. They've put themselves into 3rd. I appreciate that Spurs could beat Everton tomorrow and go above both, put United into 5th and Newcastle into 4th. But that would be Spurs with 2 games in hand over Man United and Newcastle. I think Man United and Newcastle have got the better run-in than Spurs. I think they've got the better squad than Spurs. It's difficult from a United point of view when you're fresh off a loss to Newcastle, a comprehensive loss, to say that we should still get to top 4. But realistically, we don't have Casemiro, we don't have Eriksen, we don't have a striker. And Newcastle took full advantage of that. So I think United still will get top 4. But from Newcastle's point of view, they're absolutely vibrant at the moment. They're not in Europe, and they seem to have recaptured the belief and form that they had before the World Cup, where they are one of the best teams in the league. They were brilliant today, and I think that taking that, they just seem to have got that spark back. They seem to have got that fluidity back. They seem to have got that identity back. I never predicted United were going to win that game, by the way. I said a draw. You look at Newcastle this season, they've only lost 1 game at home, and that was the game against Liverpool where Nick Pope got sent off. Like, they've played Man City at home. I know they've still got Arsenal. I mean, I'd be worried if I was Arsenal having to go there, because they are a difficult proposition, and obviously the crowd make it very, very difficult. But I think Newcastle have got a great chance of getting top 4 now, a really, really big chance. And I know that teams like, look, I think it'd be a miracle for Brighton to do it. You obviously know that Liverpool are going to do everything they can to do it, but I think it's going to take a collapse from Newcastle or a collapse from Manchester United to open the door for a Liverpool. Spurs are an unknown quantity, but look, it's Spurs, Man United and Newcastle for those 3rd and 4th spots, and Newcastle have done themselves the world of good today. And you've got to give a shout out to Eddie Howe, and you've got to give a shout out to the fans and the players. I don't like doing that as a Man United fan, but sometimes you've got to put your hands in the air and say, there's nowhere to go. Like, there is nowhere to go. There's no major refereeing decision. There's no, chances we should have scored. If anything, I mean, anything we tried, Newcastle did it better. They were the better team, and if they play like that, they should comfortably get top four. In fact, I was just looking at some of the games they've got to play. They've got Brighton home, West Ham away, Brentford away, Villa away, Chelsea away, Spurs home, Everton away, Southampton home, Arsenal home, Leeds away, Leicester at home. I mean, look, there's a lot of games to be played. A lot of those games look difficult, but you could say the same for United, you could say the same for Spurs. We're living in a league that is exciting, and look, I'm not stupid, some might say I am, but I imagine a lot of people love that result today for Newcastle for many reasons, but from a Premier League point of view, it's just another good result for the Premier League, isn't it? It just makes everything way more interesting, Third place isn't nailed on now because it's now Newcastle's. It could be Spurs tomorrow. We've got midweek games, got next weekend games as well. The relegation battle is intense. The title, I've never known a Premier League season like this where every area of the league is just so hard to predict. You can't predict who's going to win it. You can't predict who's going to get relegated. You can't predict who's going to get top four. And that Newcastle result today, for the purists, would be the ideal result. I do look at Newcastle's running and I do think, well, look, they've not been in this position for a very long time where they're in the top four. But they seem to have got that rhythm back in there. They seem to have got the Newcastle back that was the team that was really exciting at the start. And there are some difficult games there against some decent teams. But I think Newcastle's problem, certainly around January time, was they don't concede goals, but scoring goals. But, today they've scored 2 and they could have had 4 or 5. So they're looking really good. And as I said, my predictions for top 4 are Man United and Newcastle with City and Liverpool. City and Arsenal. I'm not going to change that. And I think today's performance only, firms up Newcastle's ability to do that. So, look, I don't like to say it. They were the better side. They did deserve to win, and they're looking good for that. And obviously, what that means for Newcastle and football is quite big. If Newcastle do get top 4, we know they're wealthy. What they could do in the summer transfer window is going to be very different to what they'll probably do if they don't get top 4. So, look, there are ramifications for that. I'm not going to sensationalise it or make out that it's bigger than it is. It's just the same situation when Chelsea did it, when they had their Abramovich money. It's the same situation when Man City got Champions League football for the first time with the Abu Dhabi money. You tend not to drop out again. In fact, I don't think Man City have ever dropped out on the top 4, have they, since they've had the Abu Dhabi money. So for Newcastle, this would be big. If you get top 4, it's keys to the kingdom time. The next thing is to try and win the league. And you've got to say as well, fair play to the players and fair play to Eddie Howe. If they get top 4, from just over a year ago, being in a relegation battle, Eddie Howe has spent money, but it's not been signing Mbappe or anything like that, has it? So look, fair play to them. They deserve to win today, and United were dreadful. But I think they're. Thankfully, I did say I think they'll get top 4 on Friday, and they're looking very, very good for it at the moment. But there's a long way to go. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video and make sure you subscribe. Get your comments in below.